So good morning to all of you. For those of you I don't know, I'm Lindsay Gleason. I'm the Assistant Director here at the Community Foundation. And one of my projects is I help coordinate our monthly Third Thursday sessions. So it's great to be with all of you today. And today we're going to be talking about our responsive grant application, which is open now, and also a little bit about GiveLocalNRV, our Giving Day, which is coming up in a couple weeks. So this call and this recording and the PowerPoint will be posted on our website, hopefully sometime next week. So if you need to leave early or if you want to access it at another time, you'll be able to do so. And feel free to put questions in the chat or wait until the end of just speaking when she talks about grants or when I talk about Give Local, whatever you prefer. We love questions and it helps us to know what might not be clear or what you're curious about. So things that we have coming up, our next Third Thursday meeting will be July 20th, also on Zoom starting at 9. And this topic will be about building an annual giving campaign. And this is with Ann Bolton from Virginia Tech, who manages their annual giving program. And we're just excited to hear from her and chat with her. And the registration for that meeting is up on our website. So if you go to our homepage, it's up there. And then when I send out a link about the recording, I can also include a link to sign up for that one as well. Things that are upcoming. So we will, the Community Foundation's office will be closed on Monday in honor of Juneteenth. But speaking of Juneteenth, if you're having an event to celebrate, we would love to know about it and share with other folks on the call. So if you want to add the information into the chat, we would love to hear about that. And right now, it's all Give Local NRV all the time here at the Community Foundation, among the many other things we're doing. But right now, we're halfway through the early giving period for this event. And then the giving day itself will kick off at noon on Wednesday, the 28th. So I think those are kind of all my what's coming up and announcements. So I can turn it over to Jess. And let her take it away when it comes to grants.
Okay, thanks, Lindsay, and good morning, everybody. So I'm going to kind of walk through the first part of today's session and talk about the responsive grant program at the foundation. That application is open now. It opened on May 31st. And the deadline is July 21st at 5 p.m. So make sure that you are logging in and working on your application and get it in by that deadline. So we'll talk today about the grant process, the grant application, and then how the review process works at the end. For those who've applied to us before, the grant is the same as it was last year. So it's going to look quite familiar to you, but we're just going to share some tips and go over the major components just as a reminder for you. So go ahead and go forward for me, Lindsay. So we do everything through our online application system. And as soon as you log in and click apply in the upper left, you're actually going to see two different grant opportunities show. So I just wanted to make sure that it was clear what those are, since that piece is different. So the responsive grant program is the one that's going to be relevant to most everyone on this call. This is our general grant program with up to $4,000 in operating support for nonprofits or units of local government in our service area, which you can see listed there. And that's the main one that you want to look at. It says operating support grant application. You'll also see that this year we are managing the application process for the Montgomery County Educational Foundation's grants. So if you are part of MCPS, a teacher, a PTA, a student group, or have a program specifically with Montgomery County Public Schools, that is open to you. If you are wondering whether or not you would be eligible or fit, you're welcome to contact the foundation. But I would say most of the folks on this call we're going to focus on this responsive grant program, because that's really the one that the vast majority of nonprofits in our area are eligible for. So you will see that when you come up, and you will click to apply to the responsive grant program. So move ahead for me, Lindsay. So some folks asked, when we had you register, we asked if you had some questions that we should cover. And one of those was whether there is a focus area for the responsive grants. There is really not a particular focus area because we are using a lot of different endowed funds at the foundation for these grants. Each one of those has a focus area, and altogether we really fund a variety of things. But in the application, you're going to be asked to indicate an area of interest. And those, I won't go through all of these in detail, but there is a document on our grants page that spells out exactly what we mean by each one of these areas of interest. You'll choose a primary area of interest, the main focus of your work, and then also secondary areas. This is just to help us as we split the applications out amongst the readers, and we'll talk about that process later, but it helps us to kind of understand the main focus. So these are some of them. There's in a second, we'll look at the next slide. But I did want to note, go back for me just a sec, Lindsay. For the education ones, we are really looking for enrichment activities or things that are not necessarily replacing what's in the classroom. So many of the folks that are here on the call, this is the kind of work you do every day, but occasionally we will get applications directly from schools, which is fine, but we do not want to be funding things that are kind of typically part of the classroom, typical curriculum. It's generally, when it comes to education, we're funding things that are sort of in addition to that typical classroom experience. All right, move on ahead there, Lindsay. And these are just the other areas of interest as well. So they really kind of cover the gamut. It's a pretty much a 360-degree program. So just look at these to determine which your organization fits into the best. Knowing that, you all do work that probably hits on multiple of these, but again, just to kind of give us a sense of your focus. All right, go ahead, Lindsay. So before we talk through the application, I just wanted to make clear what we will not fund in this process. So we're not going to fund something that already occurred, right? We're if you had recently had an event, but you're not going to get that grant money until, 3 months from now, that we're not going to kind of go back and fund something. We do not fund membership or civic organizations. So think of Kiwanis Club or Junior Women's Club, where their work is to just redistribute funds to other nonprofits, right? Those organizations do great work. It's just not what we fund through this process. We don't fund deficit funding. So if you've got kind of debt reduction within your budget, we won't fund that specifically, but we know, we're funding your general operating budget. And then we know that religious entities, particularly some of our churches in the region, do a lot of great community outreach work. So we do support your community outreach work if you are part of a church, but we will not support any program that proselytizes any way. If there is a requirement that the clients engage in some sort of religious instruction, we will not fund that project. So please just make sure if you're from a religious institution that this is a community outreach program broadly. All right, go ahead, Lindsay. So there are several components to the application. Within our application system, you can log in, you can return to that application over time and save your work. It is not officially accepted by us until you submit it at the end. So you can go in and kind of revise and work on these over time. And work through these components. So first and foremost, there is a set of guidelines and FAQs. It's both linked in the application and available on our grants website. Please read through that. Please read through that so that you know what to expect, because we work every year on trying to anticipate some of the questions we get. We also have samples in there of what some of the documents are that we require, so you can see what we're looking for. After you have confirmed that you've read those guidelines, then we'll ask for both your area of interest, which we talked about, as well as your geographic service area. And that's kind of where your work is focused. Within the grant guidelines, we define that pretty clearly. It's like how we want you to select your area of service. And that can be either a particular county or all of the NRV. And again, look in those grant guidelines that explains that very clearly. And then there are several narrative components. We'll walk through those in a minute, as well as some documents you can upload. So let's kind of go through the main portions of the application. Go forward for me, Lindsay. Lindsay, can you move?
Yeah, I'm
Sorry.
sorry, Jess, it's frozen or something.
A little slow.
Well, it's just, it's tired. There you go. Sorry about that.
I hear that. No problem. Okay. So after you've gone into the application, you filled in some basic information about your geographic and area of interest, then you're going to get into the narrative questions. A couple things in general about the narrative questions. Each one of them has a character limit. It's not a word limit, it's a character limit. Now the system is going to update you. If you're going over your character limit, it will show that. But do know that we want you to be concise in these while still providing enough information for our readers. So take a look at those and think about how you are using the space you have wisely within those character limits. The first thing you're going to do is just provide an overview of your organization. What is the main work that you do? Who do you serve? And what are the main needs that you focus on? This is kind of your elevator pitch in written form, just giving an overview of the organization. Then you're going to talk about your impact and effectiveness. So we really want to get a sense of how at your organization you know that you are meeting your goals and pursuing your mission. And here, it's helpful to include some different data in there about, say, how many visitors you've had or how many clients you've served. The more information that you can provide to us about the extent of your impact, the better that's going to be. And this can be both quantitative information, but also qualitative information, like, a quote from a key client about the impact of your work. So there's a variety of different ways you can do this, but we want you to be as specific as possible. So when we get a response that's like, well, we know we're effective because people like coming, that's not really, a compelling answer. We want to understand, how do you know that what you're doing is making a difference in the way that you've defined? Go forward, Lindsay. So the next two questions for narrative ask you about your challenges. So the first one is just to talk about what are your general challenges at your organization, particularly as it relates to sustaining your operations, because this is all operating money. And let me underscore that because I didn't do that adequately before. This is unrestricted operating money. So it can be used at your organization for whatever you see fit. We want to provide that flexibility. So that's why this challenges question is important, because it helps us understand what is it that you're struggling with most. Is it that, being able to hire enough folks to do the work? Is it a particular challenge your clients are facing that you want to be able to support more? So this is your chance just to explain, because nobody's life is completely 100% hunky-dory, right? We know that all the work that you do is challenging. So share those challenges with us. But the next question is as if not more important, which is how are you trying to mitigate that challenge? So if your challenge is fundraising and you say, we're going to mitigate the challenge by hoping we get more money, that's not going to work, right? We want to know that not only are you thinking about the challenge, but that also how do you plan to address it? And we understand that there's no magic bullet to a lot of the challenges you're facing. But let's say your challenge is fundraising. You can say, okay, well, we've set a goal to apply for a certain number of grants this year, to do a marketing campaign to our core donors to help raise more money, to look at a fee for service model. There are a variety of different things that you could be specific in saying, here's what we're trying to address our challenge. And that's going to be really key, because our readers in particular will know, well, yeah, they talked a lot about what their challenges are, but they really have no plan for how they're going to address it. And that's a key piece that we want to see. Go ahead and move forward, Lindsay. So I did want to share, and again, this PowerPoint will be posted so you can see these, but when you're talking about impact or effectiveness or kind of the needs that your organization is addressing, it can be helpful to make note of kind of the broader context in which you're working. And there are some fantastic data sources, both within our region and then broadly, that can talk about different data that can tell you things like how many children are on a free or reduced lunch program in our area, or how many older adults are living in poverty. These are kind of compelling data points sometimes that helps us to understand why you're doing what you're doing. And we are very fortunate in the New River Valley that we have a lot of fantastic data sources in the region. So I would encourage you to take a look at these as they are relevant to the work that you do. All right, go ahead, Lindsay. Okay, here is the stuff that's the focus. And I know Laura, chime in. This is where people have the most trouble with what documents we ask them to upload. So within the application, you are going to be asked to upload several documents. So I'm going to walk through what's required depending on your individual organization. So the vast majority of folks are a 501c3 nonprofit. You'll be uploading your letter of determination. You should have this at the ready at all times. We'll show you an example in a minute, but that is a key piece to help us know that you are a nonprofit. You'll be asked to upload an operating budget, a financial statement, which is generally a profit and loss statement, and a list of your board members. And again, we'll walk through each of those pieces.
And please, let me just chime in on that 501c3 letter of determination. That is not a sales tax certificate.
Right.
Please, let me say it again, because I keep having to send organizations back to draft status. A sales tax certificate is not acceptable. It has to be your IRS letter of determination.
Right. Yeah. Thanks. You'll be able to tell throughout our session here what are the things that drive us crazy, because we try to make it really clear, and the sales tax certificate is one of them. So again, that IRS determination letter. So we oftentimes have organizations that are doing work in the community and they themselves are not a 501c3. They might not be an incorporated entity, but they work through a fiscal agent. I know New River Community Action serves as the fiscal agent. Sometimes religious institutions do, which we'll talk about in a minute. Again, please read the grant guidelines, because there is very clear information in there about having a fiscal agent and what's required, because the fiscal agent is the 501c3 that's receiving the money that we can grant to. So we need, in that case, the determination letter from the fiscal agent. And then the additional information about the program can come from your particular program that's doing the work. So an example might be, I believe, let's see, the Emergency Needs Task Force of Pulaski uses NRCA, I believe, still as its fiscal agent, or it certainly did in the past. So in that case, we need to make sure that NRCA's IRS determination letter is uploaded, but the actual financial information is from the Emergency Needs Task Force. It is all within the grant guidelines, but again, you can always call the office if you want to get a sense of, okay, exactly based on my situation, what is it that I need? Go ahead to the next slide.
Yes, we have a question in the chat. Is the profit and loss statement for the most recent closed fiscal year or for the current year?
I'm going to get to that in just a second.
Okay.
So let me talk through these, and then we're going to go into detail on the financial statements, and I'll answer that one.
Okay.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to note, and again, this is all in the guidelines, if you are a unit of local government, so this can be a school or a library, you don't have a 501c3 letter, so to speak, but units of government are considered, tax exempt organizations for the purposes of this. So what we would ask in that case is that the local government provide us with a letter of support for the project, saying, yes, Montgomery County is behind the library system receiving this grant. And the unit of government will have an employer identification number, and that needs to be included as well, just so we know that we have that as part of our system for the tax exempt verification. And then your particular unit, like your library or your school, will need to upload the operating budget, the financials, which we'll talk about momentarily, and then who are, if it's not a board of directors, who are the main decision makers? What's the, if it's a committee, who are the ones that are overseeing it? And then finally, we see a lot of religious institutions. Some religious organizations are themselves 501c3, in which case you will have that letter of documentation. But if that is not the case, then again, it follows what we would do for a unit of local government. So there, the religious institution needs to write a letter of support with their EIN number, and then the specific program that would be utilizing the funds will upload the additional documents. Again, if there's any questions, you can contact the office and take a look in that grant guidelines. So go ahead, Lindsay. So here, I'm going to walk through each one of these components a little bit more so you understand what it is we're asking and why we're asking for it. So the first thing we want to know is that you have an operating budget. So you would be surprised the number of organizations who don't have an operating budget. So not best practice. We want you to have an operating budget, and we want to see what it is. That operating budget should be for your current fiscal year. It should have revenues and expenses, not just what you are spending, but what money comes in. And on that, you can provide a budget narrative. So if you want to be able to explain a certain line item in a little bit more detail, that's fine. You can put that in your operating budget and upload that budget as a PDF. And you can see here kind of why do we ask for it. So we want to know that you have one and that you engage in that kind of financial planning. It helps us to understand the role that our money plays within your broader budget. It just gives us a sense of the kinds of ways that you raise funds and spend them beyond just what you are putting in the narrative. Let's go ahead again, Lindsay. All right, so the financial statement piece, getting to the question that came up in our chat that Laura shared. So this needs to be a financial statement that shows your current financial situation. It can be a budget versus actual report. It can be a profit and loss statement. We do not want your audit because your audit is not current. That's typically about a year or 6 months to a year behind your current financial situation. We don't want a cash flow report or just a list of expenses. We don't want you to just upload your operating budget again. We want to see how you're performing against your budget, right? So where, you've set a budget, how is that going? So regarding the question about the time period. So if you have a calendar year, financial year, then just submit the current calendar year's financial statement. So we know obviously it's not going to be a full 12 months. But in the case of the foundation, for example, we have a calendar, our fiscal year is a calendar year. So we would have our profit and loss statement from January through June uploaded into the system. If your fiscal year is a July to June one, then we want to see kind of the fiscal year through June 30. So sometimes folks might be completing their application, say on July 15th before the deadline. The only financials you may have are from like the first 2 weeks of July. That doesn't really do much for us, right? So in that case, we want to see the previous year through June 30. Again, if you have a question, you can let us know about that. You can also, within the financials, explain different aspects of them too. So again, if you want to add some sort of narrative about particular pieces, you can do that within the budget. And go ahead and move forward one because there's a couple other things on this piece. So why do we ask for this? We want to get a sense of your financial health because we want to see, you know, how you're doing. That's helpful to us, not only in terms of grants, but it gives us a really good sense of sort of what's going on in the nonprofit community broadly. Are there other programs or things we should be doing outside of grant making based on what we're seeing from our nonprofits? So it gives us a sense of your financial health and helps us to understand that you're going to be a good steward of our funds. And that you actually have financial statements. Again, best practice for any organization is to have real financial statements that are tracking your performance over time. So we want to see that. The other thing I'll underscore here is a lot of times your financial statements are in some sort of Excel spreadsheet, right? Which is great and very useful. And then you make it into a PDF, but you don't format it. And so what gets uploaded to us is like 60 pages of random columns and very, very tiny print. And we cannot read that. So please, when you are uploading your financial statement, make sure that you have taken a look at that document and know that somebody who is opening up that document is going to be able to read it. Because unfortunately, we have had to remove applicants because we can't read any of their financial information. And that's heartbreaking. But when they don't have it for us to look at, it doesn't do us any good. Okay, go ahead, Lindsay. Then again, the IRS letter, just emphasizing again that this is the letter of determination from the IRS that said, congratulations, you are considered a tax exempt organization. It is not your sales tax certificate, as Laura said, so please don't upload that. It's going to look kind of like this here, and again, we're happy to sort of share examples if you want to see those, but it will include your EIN number on it, and it will include the date you are incorporated. The grant guidelines do have information. If for some reason you don't have your 501c3 letter, you can request it from the IRS. Just make sure that you do that well in advance because it takes some time, but hopefully you have that at the ready just to go ahead and upload. All right, and next slide. Then the final kind of major piece you're going to upload is a list of your board members. And so we are looking for a list of your board members and their affiliations, both for your organization and if they are actively working or retired from a job, it's helpful for us to see who's on the board. So please make sure that you list if they're an officer of the board, indicate that, and then whatever affiliation information you have. So our board president at the foundation is Pat Heyer, and she is retired from Virginia Tech's provost's office. So we would include that. So why do we look for this? So first of all, we want to see that you have a board, particularly if it's an organization we're not real familiar with or that you're new. We want to see that there's not just like you and your uncle on the board, right? That there's a group of people that are ensuring good oversight of the organization. It also helps us to see the size of your board, the leadership, and then particularly whether there's changes over time. So this is something that it's not going to eliminate you from receiving funding, but it's just kind of something we note. If there's no term limits and turnover on your board, that can become a problem, right? You want to make sure that there's that boards have new folks in looking at your materials over time. So again, that's not going to eliminate you from consideration, but it's something that we take a look at to understand, like, hey, how is this organization following best practices? All right, move ahead, Lindsay. So then you have some other items that you can upload. So there are options in here to upload a letter of support or some supplementary information. You do not have to do this, but sometimes folks can find it helpful. I would say that less is more here because all of our readers are looking at these different pieces and they don't want to read through an additional 50 pages of letters and impact, right? So it's really what is going to be able to tell your story that you could not get into the main narrative or that really demonstrates how you're going to use the money. Again, we are not going to hold it against you if you don't upload something. That is completely optional. The other thing we ask for is a photograph. And a couple things here. So we utilize these in our promotional materials. Some of the best pieces that we put out are from the great pictures that you send us, but they have to be large enough to be print quality. So that's 1 megabyte or 1,000 kilobytes in size. We ask you to try as much as you can to show people that are engaged with the organization. So I know that that's not always easy because you want to make sure that you're maintaining the dignity of those folks that you serve. So we understand that and want to be thoughtful about that. But we also know that some of the things that make the best and most compelling photographs of your organization are maybe volunteers that are engaged with the work in some way. So rather than sort of showing a picture of the food that you've given out, show people engaged with giving out that food. That's going to be a compelling picture and one we're going to be able to utilize. And then finally, again, this is in the grant guidelines. If you do have photographs of minors, you need to make sure that you have permission to use those if their face is shown. And we at the foundation can ask to see that release at any time. So just make sure that you do have that permission to use children in your photos. All right, go ahead, Lindsay, we'll wrap up. Okay, so some final tips to think through as we're wrapping up here. So I said it, I'll say it again and again, read the guidelines, please read the guidelines, also read the guidelines so that you know what we're asking for. And we have really tried in there to anticipate what the questions will be. So we don't want you just to check that box and say you did it, and then inevitably you upload something that like very clearly in the guidelines you shouldn't have done. Drives us crazy. So please read those. Like I said, with the financial information, please check all your formatting on those uploaded items to make sure it's readable, so that we can actually look at your information. Again, the deadline is July 21st. If you have questions, please contact us well before the deadline so we can troubleshoot them for you. So not only do we work with you to try to figure out, okay, what's the best thing to upload, but then we can also make a note internally, like, okay, I talked to so-and-so and this is what I told them to upload, right? So that we kind of know, like, here's what we said. So if you have something and we're like, what is this? Like, no, Jess said that was fine. So we want to make sure that we're talking to you and helping you troubleshoot. So when it goes forward to our committee, they know they have what they need. Please don't wait until the last minute to submit your application. In our system, when you submit your application, then we have to kind of go in and check it before it's complete. And if we see something before the deadline that's a problem, like your formatting's off or you uploaded your sales tax certificate when you shouldn't have, we can flag that, may unsubmit your application and send you a note that's like, hey, this isn't correct. Could you please do it? If you submit your application, an hour before the deadline, we're not going to catch it. So please make sure that you submit it well in advance. And you can, after you submit, you're going to receive an email confirming it was submitted, but you're always welcome to just give a quick call too and say, hey, is it in there? Can you take a quick look at everything and make sure it looks okay? And speaking of that, make sure that you are checking your email, because communications through our grant system will go to your email address. So not just the submission, but if there's something else that we need, information to sign up for our grantee reception is going to all come to the email that you provide in your application and your organization information. So please make sure that you are checking that regularly. One more slide, and then I'll make sure to take a look at the chat. So go ahead, Lindsay. So in some of the questions asked in advance, folks wondered kind of what our process looks like. And so I wanted to just walk through that quickly so you get a sense of how this goes and why, when you submit in July, you are not receiving money until the fall timeframe, typically September, October, even into November. So the first thing that we do after you've submitted your application is our staff goes through and looks at all the applications to make sure that those that have submitted are eligible, that there's no major pieces that are missing or incorrect. And we flag those for our committee. So we will flag ones that were like, hey, we don't know if this is really going to fly, or I don't know if this organization really fits what we were saying for eligibility. So we flag those as a staff, and our review committee then helps us decide, okay, are any of those going to be pulled out immediately because they're just ineligible? Or do we want to go ahead and score those applications, but make a note that there are pieces that we're not sure if they're giving us the information we need. So after the staff reviews those and we have removed any applications that for one reason or another are ineligible, then we have a review committee of volunteers. This is board members as well as other community volunteers that score applications. We typically receive about 100 applications a year. So we do not ask our reviewers to read every one. We split them up into teams based on area of interest. So we've got a team that's looking at all the arts applications and another that's looking at those related to poverty, so that they're looking at similar types of things. They score the applications in our system, and then they meet as a group to talk through those scores and prioritize the applications. So we know which ones they really want to see funded, and those that if funding allows will receive money. Then the next step is to start to do the funding process. If you have ever taken a look at the Community Foundation's annual report, it lists every one of our endowed funds, and you will see that there are a lot of them. So over 50 of them participate in this process, and it's a massive puzzle, essentially. So we are looking at what the purpose of that particular fund is. It might focus on a geographic area like Pulaski. It might focus on an area of interest like education. And we are matching those particular funds with the applications you submit, looking at those priorities that our committee created too, so that we know those that are high priority are getting funded. That process takes a while, and we do that in multiple ways depending on the nature of the fund. So folks ask us sometimes, is there a focus area? And it's like, no, because there's so many different funds that are part of this. So I would say, put your best foot forward as an organization and explaining what you do. It's likely we've got some fund that fits that, and then leave it up to us to decide kind of how that best matches. And then after the committee and the staff work together on this sort of funding mix, then our board officially approves it, and you all are notified at that time. And you'll see sometimes if you look at a list of past grant recipients, how sometimes a grant is funded with a single endowed fund. Sometimes there's multiple funds supporting your grant. Again, you're just applying to the foundation, and let us sort that out for you. But that kind of explains a little bit how the process works and why it takes us a while. The other thing to note quickly is that when your application is being actively evaluated by your committee, you will not see it in the system. So we get many a panicked phone call in the fall where people are like, I just went in to print a copy of my application and it is not there. It's okay. You submitted it. It is being reviewed. So it is not in there for you to see. If for some reason you need, though, like a copy of that application and you can't find it in there, call our office and we can make a PDF of your application and email it to you. Okay, so don't worry, it's in there. It's just that you're not going to see it. So we want to help you and calm your nerves when you don't see it in there. Okay, so let me just maybe Lindsay and Laura, what did you see in the chat as questions that we can answer before we move to Give Local stuff? Take a look as well. Okay.
So we answered the one about the profit and loss. Dawn says we're a brand new, just incorporated in February, so there's not much to report here yet. Do we just report on a little bit of financial data so far?
Exactly. Yeah. So just give us what you've got. Give us as much as you have, both for that financial information. And then I'm seeing as well, same question as it goes with impact. Just be able to explain what your impact is. And you can talk a little bit as well about, how you hope to expand that impact over time. But, we're going to take into account that you're a newer organization when we're evaluating it.
About it.
Okay. Any other? I think that's all the ones.
That's all.
Anyone
Yeah.
in the
Thank
chat?
you.
Yeah.
Just one that came up for me when you were talking, I know that we have a change this year with the grant catalog, and I just wondered if you could share a little bit about that with folks.
Sure. Thanks, Lindsay. That's really important. So for those who've participated in the past few years, you'll know that we have used this thing called a grant catalog, which takes your organization summary, moves it into this kind of website where folks can look and see what has been funded. And in the past, we have both had our donors that are part of this process take a look in there, as well as the public look at it and make contributions. Without going into the details of it, the behind the scenes of receiving those public contributions is very tricky and makes a gigantic mess of our accounting system. And in the past few years, we've seen those contributions decline year over year to public. So we are not doing a public facing catalog this year. We encourage you to use your GiveLocalNRV platform or your own giving page on your website and to continue raising money for your organization. But when it comes to your grant, it's only going to be funded by a fund at the foundation. So there's no public facing grant catalog. It is going to be solely for donors affiliated with the foundation who use our system. And that is going to make the foundation staff and accountant much happier, which is something you want anyway. So please know that there's no public facing system. That's a good question, Lindsay. Any other questions on the application? And so I would just reiterate again, as we transition, please make sure you read the guidelines. And if you have questions, call into the office and do so early so that we can help troubleshoot for you, because we really do want to see your organization's funded. And oftentimes the reason your organization isn't funded is just because we didn't have enough money. We want to make sure that we're supporting your organizations, and to do that, we want to be here for you and helping with the process. So please make sure you're calling in and asking questions ahead of time and being thoughtful about getting everything in on time or before the deadline for us. Okay, with that, Lindsay, I'll turn it back over to you to jump into some GiveLocal stuff.
Sure. Thanks, Jess. And I'll just add on to what you said. If you submit early, we can potentially, or if you have questions early, we can potentially give you feedback on what you're submitting. If you're having issues formatting a document, we're always happy to help. Just reach out to us early. So as I mentioned, all kinds of things going at the foundation as always, but lots, this is our contact information, but lots going on with GiveLocal. We are halfway through the early giving period for this event. So I want to share a little bit about kind of some of the questions that we've been getting from folks, and I'll go through some details quickly, but please reach out to me or anyone on the team if you have any questions, whether it feels small or if it feels big. We're always happy to chat. So this is the 10th anniversary of this annual online event. And since 2014, all of us, this whole community, has raised $2.6 million for the wonderful organizations in this community. So we're really excited to see how things go this year. And if you've looked at the GiveLocal website, we have the early giving leaderboard going, and you all have been, so many folks have been fundraising in the early giving period, and it's just fun to see, and we're cheering you on. This year, we have over 100 organizations registered, and we're officially at the halfway mark for the early giving period. So about 2 weeks left to go until Giving Day kicks off at noon on Wednesday, the 28th. And if you've been involved in GiveLocal for a while, you'll know that in the past, we've done a midnight to midnight format. This year, we're changing things up to do noon to noon, and we'll kind of see how we gain momentum in a different way with that format. And we're excited to see what happens with this change and what you all do this year. So one of the reasons that folks participate in Give Local is that the Community Foundation and our sponsors give away prizes and grants. And this year we're giving away over $25,000 in addition to a Buzz for Good episode. These grants or prizes are kind of split in between things focused on most money raised and most unique donors. And then there's, and the full list of those is on the website, so you can get the details there. But there's some new prizes here that I just wanted to highlight. One is the farthest donor, which is literally the person who sends the donation who's farthest from the Community Foundation office in Blacksburg. So acceptable gifts for those are either if it's made online on the Give Local website or a check. And that can be submitted in the early giving period or the giving day itself. We also have a best short video prize that Buzz for Good is sponsoring, and that's your 30-second elevator pitch about your work. And you might be able to win that extra prize money. Just submit that to me via email by noon on the 29th to be considered for that prize. And all the details on what to include and think about are on the website. And then the other new prize this year is using the text to give tool. So you create a code in the system that's specific to your organization. Your donors text that code to a number, and your the link to your page pops up, and they can give on their phone. And so the organization that raises the most money using that tool between the early giving period and the giving day itself will win some extra funds. So lots of details with all those grants and prizes, and you can find all that on the website. One thing I want to note is grants and prizes aren't final until they're announced by the leaderboard. So you might, or pardon me, announced by the Community Foundation. So you might see on the leaderboard that it looks like your organization won a certain grant. Just know that the leaderboards might not reflect final totals because there might be some offline gifts pending in the system that we're waiting to approve. So wait to announce that you've won something until you receive an email from the Community Foundation letting you know. So what do I mean when I say offline donations? We've gotten lots of questions this year about this, so I want to make sure to highlight it. So this is a primarily online event. Any gifts that are received through the Give Local website are counted toward your giving day totals. If you receive a donation on your regular website or through something like Facebook or Stripe, those cannot be counted in your giving day totals, unfortunately. So direct your donors, if they want to give online, to give through the Give Local website. But we do know that some donors prefer to not give online for whatever reason. So we do accept some offline donations. The ones that we typically see the most are checks or cash. Less common are wire transfers, but those are acceptable for offline donations. If it is a check, and I would say it's similar for a wire transfer, these must be received and dated between June 1st and noon on the 29th. And so how do we know that a check is dated noon on the 29th? We go by when you've entered it into the system. So any offline gift that you receive must be entered into the system by noon on the 29th for it to count toward your totals. And if the donation is more than $1,000, we'll just ask to verify it before approving in the system, because there's so many details with giving day. You may have missed that maybe you can't hold on to a check from May to enter into your totals. So we just like to verify that. And then also, so many of our grants and prizes are really close. So we just want to make sure we have the most accurate information, and we can share that with all of you. So we'll just send you an email asking you to share that information, and then we'll get it approved in the system. So with us being halfway through the giving day period, you might be in a place where you've done a lot of outreach to your supporters, but you might be in a place where you're like, oh, I signed up for this in January and I haven't had time to reach out to folks. I just want to emphasize that there's still time to reach out to your supporters. And I would say email is your best tool to get supporters to donate. So let them know that you're participating this year and specifically what you're raising money for. So if you're raising $2,000, let them know what that money might go to. Or if you have an example of what a gift might represent, you can say something like $25 will represent, you know, buying a backpack full of food for a child for 2 weeks or something like that. And then send the direct link to your page so people can find you faster and make a gift faster. Keep them updated on your progress. So donors like to know how you're doing with this community event. So if you've maybe hit a milestone of you hit half way to your goal, let them know we're halfway to our goal. Can you, if you haven't given yet, could you make a gift? And share with them if you're going after a certain prize or grant. A lot of folks go after power hours or golden tickets, which are specific period of times where you're raising money. Let your supporters know that and encourage them to give during that time if that's something you're going after. And then when giving day is over, let them know how you did and thank them again for contributing. People like to know kind of the final result of something like this. And it's always a good stewardship to just keep thanking your donors. So I know a lot of you are having events before the giving day or on the day itself. Please let us know. We would love to share about it and attend if possible, either our staff or board members. It's always great to go out in the community and see you all on giving day or leading up to the giving day. So let us know and we're happy to share about it and attend. And then please send us your photos. We would love to share them in publications like the annual report or on our social media. And if you haven't gotten t-shirts yet, please stop by our office. We would love to share those out and make sure you all get them. Just let us know if you're going to stop by so we can ensure that someone's here in the office. Many of you have matches set up in the system. And so if we wanted to make sure you may be new this year, but if you're a returning organization, I wanted to highlight that there's a change this year. I know that matches have been a bit of a headache in the past in terms of getting them to work in the system. One, to let you know that your match dollars will automatically show in your leaderboard total. So they will show both on your page and in the leaderboard. So to allow your match to count toward your leaderboard totals in real time, you will want to make sure to check the box that says include match value in page metrics, which is different in the past. And sometimes matches can be tricky. If you have any questions, please reach out and I'm happy, or someone on our team is happy to help you get that sorted out. But I just wanted to highlight that there is that change this year. And then on the day of, so, and you know, anytime leading up to the event, please reach out to our team via phone or email. I'm the prime contact at the Community Foundation for Giving Day, but any one of us is happy to help you and troubleshoot. But I wanted to make sure you knew that on the day itself, on Giving Day, our partners at Mighty Cause, who hosts the website and process all those donations, they will be available all 24 hours during the event. They have someone kind of on call because they know that if there's an issue late at night, it's kind of time is of the essence, right? So they're available. The best way to get a hold of them, I would say, is to send them an email because they might ask you for something like a screenshot of the issue that you're experiencing. And so I would say email them, but there's also the option to call as well. We, of course, will be available that day as well. We might not be available at midnight that night, but so just want to highlight that Mighty Cause will be available at midnight if you're having an issue. And they're super helpful and super fast, so want to make sure to highlight that. Here's all of our contact information. And I sort of can't emphasize enough that we're always happy to chat with all of you about grants or Give Local. And if your question feels big or small, we're really happy to troubleshoot or strategize with you or troubleshoot that website. So please reach out. Always happy to talk. So I can stop there with my Give Local stuff and just check the chat real quick.
Check the chat. Got a question? Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Laureen. So Laureen asked, does money collected in peer-to-peer fundraisers count in power hours, or does it all have to go through the main page? That's a great question. So Jess, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's any gift that your organization gets either on your organization page or through a peer-to-peer fundraiser will count towards your power hour. Am I getting that right?
Yep, yeah, you're getting that right. And so when you all use the peer-to-peer pages, that all kind of, those contributions like feed up into the total, both of unique donors and of money for your organization. So yes, if it comes through your peer-to-peer, that's all going to count just as it would if it went through the organization's page.
Yeah, thanks, Laureen.
And that includes the matching grant too, I think. Like if you've got a matching grant, it also,
That's
yes.
correct.
okay,
Yes. Mhm.
thank you.
Sure. And if your supporters are using the peer-to-peer fundraisers, we've seen a lot of them this year. It's been great. Make sure that they update the title of the fundraiser to say I would suggest including their name in the fundraiser, because when a donor goes to search for you, a lot of pages will come up, and we want to make sure that they can find their specific page. If you need any help with that, let me know. The other thing that we get a lot of questions on is what are you talking about when you say the phrase unique donor? And what we mean there, so that's for certain grants and prizes that we're counting unique donors, and it's counting each individual person one time. So say I'm really excited about the YMCA's work and I give to you all 5 times in a power hour. Well, I'm only going to count one time as a unique donor during that hour. All of my gifts will count for the money raised, but in terms of counting donors, I'm counting one time instead of 5. So, and that's the same for different grants related to most unique donors. So I know that phrase trips people up, so just wanted to share that. And I can stop sharing my screen and just say, thank you all for joining today. We really appreciate it. Are there any other questions that are coming to mind right now that we can help you with? Okay. Well, you all, please, again, you know where to find us, and we're always happy to talk with you all and hear about the great work that you're doing. And for those of you participating in Give Local, we're rooting you on and just really excited to see what you can do this year. It's a really fun event for us to be a part of. So we're looking forward to seeing what you do and looking forward to reading your grant applications. There's so much great work in this community, so we appreciate all of you. Hope you all have a great day and happy Thursday.